Hi, good evening, sir. Good evening, classmate. I'm Mark Christopher Lompero from Group 7. The assigned task to me is to state the definition of definite integral, explain the terms integrand, limits of integrations, and variable of integration. First, let us define what is definite integrals. A definite integral is a mathematical concept used to represent the area under a curve or the accumulation of a quantity over a given interval. It is defined as the limit of sum, called a Riemann sum. As the partition of the interval becomes finer and finer, definite integrals are used to solve problems in a variety of fields, including physics, engineering, and economics. They can be used to calculate things like the displacement, velocity, and acceleration in physics, or to find the value of an object in geometry. Notation. The notation for a definite integral is as follows. So where a and b are the lower and upper limits of the interval, and function of x is the function being integrated. In this notation, the definite integral represents the accumulation of the quantity represented by the function over the interval a to b. It is a way to calculate the total amount of some quantity that is changing over a given interval. For example, function of x represents the speed of an object as function of time. Then the definite integral of function of x from a to b would represent the total distance traveled by the object over that time interval. Properties of definite integrals. Definite integrals have the following properties. They can be used to calculate the area under a curve. Definite integrals can be used to calculate the area under a curve by dividing the curve into small sections and summing the areas of the rectangles formed by each sections of the curve. They can be used to calculate the accumulations of a quantity over a given interval. Definite integrals can be used to calculate the accumulation of quantity over a given interval by summing the quantity over that interval. They can be used to calculate the average value of functions over a given interval. Definite integrals can be used to calculate the average of value of functions over a given interval by dividing the integral of the functions over that interval by the length of the interval. So in conclusion, definite integrals are a powerful mathematical tool that can be used to calculate the area under a curve, that accumulations of a quantity over a given interval, and the interval value of a functions of a given interval. Integrands, limits of integration, and variables of integration. Integrand. The integrand is the function being integrated. It is represented by the function of x in the definite integral notation. The functions is the integrand, and it represents the quantity that is being accumulated or measured over the interval from a to b. The definite integral of the integrand over this interval represents the total accumulation of or measure of the quantity represented by the integrand over that interval. The integrand is a function of the variable x, which is called the integrations variable in the notations for a definite integral. The dx represents the differential of x, and it indicates that we are performing an integration with respect to the variable x. Limits of integration. The limits of integrations are the lower and the upper bounds to the interval over which the integral is being calculated. They are represented by a and b in the definite integral notation. The limits of integration are also sometimes called the boundaries or bounds of the integral. The lower limit of integration a is the starting point of the interval over which the integration is being performed, and the upper limit the variable of integration is also called the integration variable. It is the variable that is used to represent the quantity that is being accumulated or measured over the interval from a to b. In the notation of definite integral, the dx represents the differential of the integration variable x, and it indicates that we are performing an integration with respect to the variable x. The definite integral of the integrand over the interval from a to b represent the total accumulation or measure of the quantity represented by the integrand over that interval. In conclusion, in summary, the integrand is the functions being integrated. The limits of integrations are the bounds of the interval over which the integral is being calculated, and the variable of the integration is the variable with respect to which the integral is being taken. So the definite integral is a mathematical concept that is used to represent the accumulations of a quantity over a given interval. It is written using the integral sign, which is a long S shape symbol, and it's defined as the limit of sum, called the Riemann sum, as the partition of the interval becomes finer and finer. The integrand is the functions that represent the quantity being accumulated or measured over the interval from a to b. The limits of integrations a and b are the lower and upper bounds of the interval over which the integration is being performed. The variable of integrations x is the variable which represents to which the integration is being performed. That's all. Thank you.